Peugeot has high aspirations for its 508 medium-range model, which means that it needs to offer cutting-edge electrified technology, and does in this plug-in hybrid form. There's a price to pay for the convenience of limited fuel-free mileage, but you'll gain some of the outlay back in lower taxation payments and petrol savings. Fastback and SW Estate variants both feature with this setup, and there's premium packaging and appealing design to sugar the asking figures.
This, in theory, is the fastest 508 variant you could choose. This hybrid model's combined 225 horsepower system output is matched by the top version of the conventional 1.6 litre PureTech petrol turbo model, but this electrified variant, not surprisingly, produces more pulling power, 360 Newton meters of it. That goes on to be blunted, though, by the fact that the hybrid tech adds a portly 280 kilograms to the curb weight. This actually isn't the first time we've seen a hybrid 508 model. The first generation design was available in electrified form too, but that was a self-charging setup mated to a diesel engine. This time round, a 180 horsepower 1.6 litre turbo petrol power plant combined with an 8-speed auto gearbox is mated to a 110 horsepower electric motor on the front axle, powered by an 11.8 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery. When fully charged, this allows for 32 miles of WLTP-rated all-electric driving range. You get 4 driving modes, with the ones you'll be using most of the time being the hybrid and comfort settings that choose the best mix of electric and petrol propulsion to suit the driving style whilst optimising efficiency, the latter softening the standard adaptive damping. The alternative settings are either Sport, where the car combines the power of the electric and petrol motors to offer livelier performance, and Electric, battery power only, in which guise the car is apparently able to run at up to 84 miles an hour. With the engine chiming in, 62 miles an hour from rest occupies 8.3 seconds, and the top speed is limited to 155 miles an hour. The hybrid system's extra weight slightly blunts the handling, but refinement is exemplary, even with the PureTech engine working, and the ride is superb. Now, unless you happen to be a Peugeot dealer or an ardent fan of the brand, you're unlikely to be able to tell a 508 hybrid apart from a conventional variant at a glance. There's a special dichroic version of the Peugeot Lion brand logo, some additional hybrid badges stuck on the rear wings, an extra left-hand filler cap for voltage charging, and a sign light that shines from the interior mirror when the car is in all-electric motion. If the 508 formula appeals, you don't have to have this body shape. There's an alternative SW Estate version that looks equally avant-garde. Either way, there's a clear desire here from the designers to do something different, which we really like. As for the inside, well, it'd be disappointing if the extrovert exterior styling wasn't mirrored by equally interesting treatment of the cabin. And that's just what you get. Here you get a very different design to the kind of thing you'd normally expect to find in this segment, with a standard of fit and finish that justifies Peugeot's premium pretensions. The hybrid model changes are subtle in this very high-quality cabin. There's a little lightning bolt piano key button just below the centre dash infotainment screen, which accesses various hybrid-specific functions. There's an extra energy display option for the instrument binnacle screen. We'll get to that. And the auto gearbox lever gains an extra B option so that regenerative braking force can be altered. That's about it. As ever with a 508, the interior feels of much higher quality than you'd expect from a volume brand, aided in sophistication by a digital instrument binnacle screen and a huge display for the aforementioned central monitor. As usual with a modern Peugeot, there's an iCockpit dash layout you'll have to get used to that leaves you looking over the smaller steering wheel at the instrument binnacle rather than conventionally through it. A word about those instrument gauges. They represent another of this cabin's defining talking points. Conventional dials completely replaced by this fully configurable and customizable 12.3-inch colour screen. Everything else you'll need to know can be found on what looks like a tablet PC attached to the fascia, a multi-function colour touchscreen that's 10 inches in size. Time to take a look at what's been served up in the rear, which requires a slight duck around the sloping roofline on this fastback model. Because this design was created from the outset to accommodate battery power, there's no compromise in rear seat accommodation with this hybrid variant, and a couple of adults will be quite comfortable. The relative narrowness of the cabin won't help if you have to take 3 folk back here, but the low transmission tunnel makes dealing with that eventuality easier than it would be in some rivals. Unlike most other PHEVs, boot space is unaltered over the equivalent combustion engine model, which in this case means that you get 487 litres of capacity in the hatch and 530 litres in the SW estate. Let's get to the efficiency figures. We've covered the 32-mile WLTP rated all-electric driving range. It's actually more like around 25 miles in real-world use. And we also ought to apply real-world thinking to projections of likely fuel economy, because the Fantasyland official combined WLTP figures up to 235.5 miles to the gallon for the fastback hatch clearly aren't likely to be replicated by the average owner. WLTP emissions are rated at up to 29 grams per kilometre for the hatch and 30 grams per kilometre for the SW. These figures will mean attractively low benefit-in-kind figures. At the time of this test in summer 2020, for a 508 hybrid with Allure trim, a user in the 40% tax bracket would be paying £1,395 a year. To give you some perspective, if the same user were running a 508 with a 1.5 litre Blue HDI diesel engine, the annual taxation fee would be £2,415. Compared to, say, a conventional petrol 1.5 litre Ford Mondeo, this car would approximately halve a typical business user's annual benefit-in-kind taxation exposure. Bear in mind that you'll need to find £300 extra to upgrade your 508 hybrid to a model incorporating a 7 kilowatt-hour monophase onboard charger that would be capable of accepting charge from anything faster than a domestic 3-pin socket. This halves charging time when charging with a typical garage 7 kilowatt wall box, and it really ought to be standard. Charging the 11.8 kilowatt-hour battery takes 3 hours and 45 minutes with a standard Mode 3 Type 2 cable, or 2 hours if the optional onboard charger has been fitted. Peugeot has to produce cars like this 508 hybrid. It doesn't necessarily have to sell a lot of them. Most of the brand's profit comes from small cars and LCVs. If models like the 508 can also sell, then so much the better. But they can't drag down the brand's across-the-range collective CO2 performance in the way that would these days deliver eye-wateringly high EU fines. So plug-in tech needs to be offered in this 508 model, even if high pricing means that the market for it is still quite small. As with a 388 hybrid, we think that you need to stick with base Allure trim for the financials to really make sense. And in this case, we'd opt for the practicality of the alternative SW estate body style. With those caveats in place and a competitive finance deal on the table, this car starts to make some sort of sense. But if you don't agree, Peugeot won't worry too much. C'est la vie.